The city is a choreography. You have millions of acts happening every day. There is movement, there's choreography, and you are like a puppeteer.
You're like a magician.
You architects, once the work is finished, you forget us. So when the Aga Khan award came, I told him, I remember you, you're going to come with me.
The beauty of the courtyard needs to be reimagined and re-brought back
It has
to the
been
center.
reimagined. They call it the parking lot now.
But everyone sits in their cars alone. This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investing in more than 35 stock markets worldwide. This episode is also brought to you by Abdel Wahed. Hi, I'm Malak Fuad, and welcome again to What I Did Next from A&T Media. I sit down with a new guest each month, and we talk about their lives' most pivotal moments. We also talk about their expectations for the future. Today, I'm joined by the legendary architect Abdel Wahed El Wakil. I recently sat down with Abdel Wahed in Doha, where he now lives, and we talked about his incredible journey through architecture and the importance that he places on materials and the spiritual connection with the land. He's perhaps best known as a disciple of the renowned architect Hassan Fathy. Hassan Fathy was known for promoting the use of brick, mud, stone, and indigenous materials in creating homes and structures. And Abdel Wahed took this even further, exporting all of these concepts to the rest of the Middle East and beyond, and really highlighting the importance of traditional architecture as opposed to what he sees as imports from 19th century and 20th century European architecture, where the focus was on concrete. Abdel Wahed is a school friend of my mother's, and I grew up hearing about him all my life. I'm really honored to be adding his story to our catalogue. His story really resonated with me, and I was so moved by his principled approach to life and his dedication to his vision and his art. In part one of our conversation, Abdel Wahed tells me how he felt destined to enter the world of architecture.
I think that most people think they're following a path that they want, but there is something above that path that accidents, events, people you meet in your life, and it changes everything.
Exactly.
For example, when I graduated from Ain Shams University in 1965, I wanted to do my PhD, my doctor's degree and everything. And I was trying to find a subject to do my research on. And I found that our cities became very ugly. So I said, what can I do as an architect to make a study of how to make cities become beautiful again? And there was a German architect who came to Egypt, and I got to know him. And I took him around Old Cairo. And he said, why you have such a beautiful architecture and you have this modern, ugly building going around Cairo? And I told him they are cheap copies of your German architecture.
And the European architecture.
Yeah. That's it. Why don't you go back to this traditional architecture? And so I said, I want to do my studies on that. Nobody at university was interested to be my
your tutor for that.
Tutor for it, yeah. So I was talking to my colleagues, and I was an instructor at the university and would sit with the instructors from Cairo University and Shams University. What can we do for the country? Why can't we do good architecture? They told me, you won't do anything. There's Hassan Fathy, who has been all his life trying to do something, never achieved anything. And I said, who's Hassan Fathy?
You hadn't even heard of him at this point.
5 years at university, nobody told me who Hassan Fathy is. Who Hassan Fathy is. And they said, oh, you know, he does houses with
mud
brick and so on. They told me, mud brick? What mud brick? Don't waste my time. I want to leave to America. I wanted to go and work with Frank Lloyd Wright or something like that. Anyhow, I couldn't get a visa to America because the relationships broke after 1967. It was difficult to go. And I ended up seeing Hassan Fathy.
How did you find him?
Through tourists.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me that story, because
I knew some foreigners in Egypt, and they said, come, we're going to see this man. He does beautiful houses.
But you had heard of him by this point.
I just heard the name Hassan
just
Fathy,
heard
but
the name.
I didn't know what he did. I thought maybe Egyptian architect. I was totally against any Egyptian architect. So I didn't believe my colleagues.
You didn't take it seriously.
Not seriously. I didn't believe that there was anything being done proper in Egypt. I mean, people copying European architecture or American. I was telling him I want to leave the country. I want to go to America. And he said, if people like you want to leave the country, you're supposed to, from the elite, you're supposed to serve your country. And I told him, Hassan Bis, who's serving the country now? I mean, it's all corruption. This reminds me of because a film about A Man for All Seasons. I don't know if you saw that film about Thomas More.
Yes, I know it, but I don't remember it.
When he went against King Henry VIII, he wouldn't allow his marriage. So he took him to the tower, and the king ordered Becket to be beheaded. And he was his friend. But he told him, if you don't sanction my marriage, I'll behead you. So he didn't. So the king goes to his daughter and says, please convince him, I don't want to behead him. So she goes to the prison and tells him, Father, and she's in tears. She tells him, why? He took our property. We'll lose our mansions. We'll lose our land. We'll lose everything. You'll lose your head. Why can't you approve his marriage? I mean, I would understand that if the country was okay, but it's all corruption. And then he tells us it's because the whole country is in corruption, it gives me more reason to be here. So that was the way, as I said, you should be here to serve the country.
When I think about you, and I think about your career and the choices you've made, I always think of you as someone who has always stood by his principles. Whether it has made your life hard or easy, you have never sacrificed on that. You've always been very sure of what you stand for. And the example you're just giving now corroborates this, that you decided to stay in Egypt when there was a big brain drain of people of your generation leaving.
Yeah.
But you went against the grain and you stayed.
I stayed for 5 years, and I was getting a breakdown because all the work I've been doing for Hassan Fathy, nothing was being built. We even had a whole village being done in Paris in the desert, in the Wahat, Kharja and Dakhla. And it stopped again, and then they made it into a prison so that nobody goes and visit it. And
So you were working on drawings only without actually implementing any of this?
yeah, and this frustrated me because I wanted to build. I love building. So at the end, I couldn't take it anymore, and I went. My mother was living in Lebanon. I went and stayed in Lebanon for summer. And I was visiting the old houses, making study of the Lebanese house. I met an interior designer who lived in one of those old houses, and he said, I told him I'm studying Arab architecture and Islamic architecture. He said, oh, I have a client in Saudi Arabia. He wants an Islamic house design.
I want to pause though, Abdel Wahed, before we jump into what you were doing next. I want to talk a little bit about architecture as a discipline. In your mind or in your assessment, what is the purpose of architecture?
That's a beautiful question. Architecture is very, very, very important. People don't realize the value of architecture because, first of all, the architect constructs space. It's your interaction with the external world. We have an internal world, an external world, and our interaction with the external world develops our character. If you take from the arts poetry, it grows through your internal world. It goes with your rational.
It's the heart and the mind.
No, it goes through your ration because the words are symbols. If you say cat, you don't see a cat. It's a CAT, but it gives you the image of a cat. So there is a transformation here.
A visual transformation.
It is like a computer. It goes through a machine language, and the other is the interface of the screen, which translates the numbers into images. In architecture, it's the opposite. It doesn't go through here. It goes through your subconscious mind. Because it does this, it's very dangerous. Because what if we realize what it sends to our unconscious mind, we might reject 90% of the type of architecture that we see today. How does this happen? For example, when you have hidden advertising, you're watching a film, and then for a split second, you have an advertisement of Coca-Cola. The eye doesn't sees quicker than your mind can recollect it. So it goes into the subconscious. It's like when you watch a movie. I remember when I was young, I'd see a movie with a carriage going, and I see the wheels going in reverse.
Yes.
And I couldn't understand.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's because the camera doesn't pick the images as quickly as the rotation of the wheels.
Yes.
So it looks as if it's going
That's
backwards.
Right, yeah.
So it's the same also with our vision. We don't see what architecture, like a hidden advertisement, does to us. And that is the danger. So the architect has a very crucial role to play, and they don't teach this at university, because when we started doing the Prince of Wales School of Architecture, I tried to get Seymour Papert from America. You know Seymour?
No, I don't.
Seymour Papert was a mathematician from MIT. He came from South Africa, and with his mathematics, he went to Geneva and studied with Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget is the father of pedagogy.
Yes, of learning, of studying.
Yeah, he wrote
Yeah.
books. I have all his books,
Yes.
the development of intelligence in
Yes.
the child. I have also a book, The Concept of Space in the Child. So, how the child conceives of space is very important.
Mhm.
He took Jean Piaget's knowledge of the intelligence of the child and developed it as a mathematician, and he produced the first computer language called Logo,
Mhm.
artificial intelligence that is now developing.
Yes.
So I tried to get him to be part of the team developing the School of Architecture for the Prince of Wales. Unfortunately, they all came with their old baggage. How to draw statues, how to do this, and they were all discussing what we will teach the student to make a proper, because Prince Charles was against modern
Yes, he was a
architecture.
traditionalist.
So they all were talking about what courses we give the
students.
student.
Yes.
And I was really frustrated. I said, don't look at what courses to give the student. You get Seymour Papert, and we see how fast and how efficiently we can teach those people how to think about architecture. It's not the courses to draw some statues or everything. This is Beaux-Arts.
Yes, exactly.
It was before we had all this knowledge about the human brain, about Freud, about Jung, about Jean Piaget.
So for you, it was a much more basic, foundational of how to think.
How to think. Even I had at university when I was teaching, I had all the books of Eduardo de Bono on lateral thinking and positive thinking and so on, because the important thing about architecture is how to think. Why? You have a blank sheet of paper and somebody gives you a program. You have to decide where to put the living room, where to open the windows, the relationship between the dining room and the kitchen, the circulation, the servants. So you have always to plan an airport. You have travelers, you have the police, you have the security, you have the catering for the plane to eat in it. So you have a network of operations. And it's the same with the city. The city is a choreography. You have millions of acts happening every day, and they are all related. So there is movement, there's choreography, and you are like a puppeteer.
You're like a magician.
Puppeteer. Yeah, like a puppeteer. You are. It's like a director also makes a movie. When you are doing this, you are entrusted with this. You have to know the process of thinking. It is not to draw a statue to learn how to handle a pencil or a pen. It is what you're going to draw.
I want to ask you, who are the architects today that you value, that you rate? Looking forward, what do you see happening in your field?
I have people who I have influenced a lot, and they're doing traditional work. I have in South Africa, I have in Lebanon, I have in Saudi Arabia.
But there are people you're confident that.
What you're asking, is there people? Yes, there are.
Yes, and you're confident that there is that the path you forged will continue.
I don't know that. I can't foresee the future, but I can say that from my readings and experience and so on, I see bad times coming, very bad times.
What worries you?
worries me is that we're trying to create a world without spiritual. We are materialist, very advanced materially.
We've gone to an extreme of materialism.
Yeah, we're making robots now that can behave like humans.
Yeah.
But spiritually, we have gone very low. So there's no more balance between our material, physical world and the metaphysical world. So you have to have a balance between the physical and the metaphysical. The physical, now you can get to from here to New York in 7 hours, which might have taken 7 months before.
That's right.
But the spiritual side is
It's lacking.
yeah, it's
vanishing.
It's destroyed by the materialist.
Yeah.
And you cannot get happiness.
How do you solve that? What is the solution for this?
Huh?
Is there a solution for that? Is there a way to combat this problem?
There is.
What is it?
There is. They used to have universities. What's a philosophical doctor? What is a PhD? Universities were there to teach people philosophy, which is the spiritual thing in life.
Yes.
What we need today is a new profession. It's called doctors of culture.
And doctors of thinking, right?
Yeah, of
doctors
culture.
Of culture and thinking.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, thinking, you have mathematicians. But when you say doctors of culture, it's to answer your question, how to change people. The most dangerous revolution people are scared of are not the ones in the streets that go out and get killed by the secret police. The true revolutionists are the ones who make a cultural revolution.
It's a culture of ideas, the revolution of ideas.
A cultural revolution, not revolution of ideas. They might be ideas that are appropriate for the culture. They might not be revolutionary, but a cultural revolution is that you see what is appropriate for the culture. It's like your children. Do you let them see any films? They are rated 13, X-rated, whatever. So if you see films of killing and daggers, so it might influence a young one to break into a shop and steal and so on. So this is what you mean, a cultural revolution is to provide the culture with a sane and healthy education.
And as you said, a spiritual dimension.
Yes.
It's very important.
Yes.
Of course. If you were to look forward, because we've looked at looking forward at the negative elements that might be coming towards us in the future, is there something that you look forward to and see something positive? Is there something that you are encouraged by for the future?
Well, always when you hit bottom, you can only rise. That's it. But there is a lot of evil in our world today. The devil is complaining to God. He says, before I used to go after them, now they're coming after me. I need to make a corporation, franchise, to put devil posts everywhere, like Kentucky Fried or whatever.
And do you think we've hit rock bottom? No, we haven't yet.
I don't think so yet. Because also there is something also very not philosophical, but how do you say? It's when people can't do anything. For example, people today who try to do anything, they are in prison, they are called terrorists, they are, they are blocked by everything. So what happens when no individual can do anything anymore because of cameras, because of secret police, because of torture, because of weapons that can destroy you like atomic bombs. So what happens when there is no way out anymore? What do you think happens?
When there is no freedom, you mean?
When there's nothing you can
When
do.
there's nothing.
Because you're asking me what can we do for the future.
And you're helpless.
Yeah, what do you think?
You become, you don't think for yourself anymore.
No.
What?
You have divine intervention.
Oh, I see. You think we will be saved.
You have divine intervention.
What do you mean?
When worst of times, you had divine intervention several times. You had Jesus, you had Moses. When everything was blocked, you have divine intervention. The Red Sea was opened for people to escape the Pharaoh.
Right.
That's divine intervention. How it can happen, for example, in certain areas, you can see it now. Hurricanes, tsunamis, the melting of the ice, the rise of temperature, the loss of a lot of vegetation. You can't get sushi rice anymore from Japan now because it has been destroyed by the weather. You have the melting snow. This is divine intervention.
But is that a wake-up call? Is that?
It's not a wake-up call. It's just, this is also in the scriptures.
Yes.
When the people go wrong, God will flush them and bring a new people.
When we come back after the break, Abdel Wahed talks to me about his work with the Oxford Islamic Center. We talk about the future of architecture as a discipline, and of course, there's our lightning round. That's all coming up. This episode is brought to you by EFG Hermes One, your one app for investment across more than 35 stock markets worldwide. With EFG Hermes One, you can buy and sell orders in real time for immediate execution across multiple global markets. You can keep track of your favorite stocks by creating and customizing multiple watch lists and make informed investment decisions with their advanced technical analysis tools to study market trends and investor behavior. So supercharge your financial journey and download the EFG Hermes One app on the Apple App Store and on Google Play and start investing today. Welcome back to the first part of my conversation with Abdel Wahed El Wakil. Abdel Wahed has been the recipient of 2 Aga Khan Awards for architecture. But like all things in his life, he has stuck to his principles. And he refused to accept the award unless his chief mason was also offered the award.
Yeah, I wrote a letter to the Karim Aga Khan because the MIT people and the jury and the snobs of the arch said, we don't give it to Mason. This is for the architects. So I wrote a letter. I said, if you want to promote Muslim architecture for Muslims was the prize of Aga Khan. So, and the Muslims, if you want to promote an architecture for them, you have to recognize the craftsmen. I couldn't build that house without Amala, the mason. So he taught me how to build in domes and vaults. He was my teacher, as Hassan Fathy was my mentor in helping me discover my way through traditional architecture, which the university tried to block me from it. So why shouldn't he be recognized? So when I wrote this letter, they decided that he shares the award with me, and I took him to Pakistan, and it became, they told me, you are a cunning politician, because it made such a propaganda for Zia al-Haq. He hugged him, and in the papers, the full page, Zia al-Haq hugging that peasant. When I met him at Hassan Fathy's, Hassan Fathy had no work, and he needed work. So I told Hassan Fathy, can I have him to build me the Agami house? No. I need him. I told you need him for what? I said, you're not building anything now. No, I'm going to build. I said, okay, when you build, come and take him from Agan. I'll bring him to you. I saw his situation like this. I told him, I'll never forget you. You architects, once the work is finished, you forget us. Yani, we are nothing. So when the Aga Khan award came, I told him, I remember you, you're going to come with me. And of course, people, even Domus wrote a beautiful introduction. Yes, that you come from the ages, like from history. You represent the legacy of Egypt, and my relationship with him was like Anthony Quinn Zorba with the English professor with Zorba. He was my Zorba, the Greek. He was my Ala, the Egyptian, because he had a philosophy. He was a man of culture.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the work you did in the United Kingdom. You've done, the majority of your work has been in the Middle East, but you worked based on a commission by the then Prince Charles, and he commissioned you to build the Oxford Islamic Center. How did this all come about? How did this relationship start together? And why was it interesting for you to make a building in England based on the principles and the type of architecture that you loved?
I wrote some articles and some interviews in England when I had the office there, and they came to the attention of the Prince of Wales. At the same time, the people in my office, I had a wonderful graphic designer, a Scottish Joanne, and she came and she told me, by the way, the Prince of Wales is saying the same things you are saying in a different context. So it started, everything he's saying and I'm saying, it coincided. And one day, Dr. Brian Hansen comes to my office and he says, I'm architect, planner. I come here in, from the Prince of Wales. He wants to see you. Everybody was shocked enough. What does he want to see me for? And he said, he's waiting for you at Highgrove. And we clicked.
Was the first meeting just getting to know you meeting, or had he wanted to meet you for a purpose?
No, they had a meeting there and they had his consultants and they were talking on traditional architecture, and they were all referring to classic architecture. And I told them, no, this is not going back to classic. Why? I said, because this is neo-pagan architecture, and this is not appropriate for the future head of the Church of England. It's not the architecture for England. You have your own traditional architecture that should be developed. And everybody, Brian Hansen screamed. He said, this is John Ruskin. You are talking like John Ruskin. I said, yes. I studied all his books. He's the best critic on architecture I ever came across. And I'm surprised why, when I tell students to read him, professors at university tell them, don't read him. He's a pedophile. They destroyed his reputation for one reason. He attacked the Bank of England.
Oh, I see.
He was against usury.
Aha.
Riba. That didn't work very well with the bankers.
Yeah. And tell me about your experience of building the Islamic Center in Oxford.
Prince of Wales tried to get me work, but unfortunately, the Western architects come and get the best projects in all the Arab world. But when the Prince of Wales wanted an Egyptian to do an architecture in England, they asked him, why have an Egyptian do architecture? What does he know about our architecture? And they embarrassed the Prince of Wales.
What did he answer?
I don't know what he answered, but he told me, and he said, I'm sorry, I heard that they attacked you and so on. I'm trying to get people together. But of course, they don't want somebody on their turf to take the work from them. But we open our heart to them, and we shun in Lebanon. All the architecture was done by foreigners. They wouldn't get even a Lebanese architect. And they made it such by producing also the lousiest universities on architecture in our countries, so that we cannot do our own buildings. In Egypt before, we had a lot of architects in Egypt doing anything. Now, it's all foreign designs.
What's interesting from the Oxford Islamic Center is, of course, you bring into the center the idea of the courtyard, which is fundamental to the traditional work of our region. But it's also traditional in Oxford because all the universities have the courtyard. So you brought these two worlds together.
If you look at the plans of Paris,
yes,
18th century and 19th century Paris, all the buildings are with courtyards.
That's right.
The courtyard was the means of building in every country, in Spain, in Europe, in France, in England. Courtyard. The courtyard only disappeared with modern architecture. It's not only Islamic.
That's right.
But it has more value in our countries because of the climate. But you have the courtyard in Japan. You have the courtyard in watch any old film where they have a historical. They're always the court. There's the lady of the court. There's the court of justice. The Palais de Justice in France. It's always a building with a courtyard.
It's always a center.
Court of festivity, lady of the court.
Of course. And that goes back, I think, to the fundamental principle of community.
Yes.
Of the idea that we are all meant to be as a collective.
Yeah. The piazza, the agora.
The piazza.
The agora.
How is that now in today's world where there's this hyper individuality and this hyper aloneness? The beauty of the courtyard needs to be reimagined and re-brought back
it has
to the
been
center.
Reimagined. They call it the parking lot now.
But everyone sits in their cars alone.
Yeah.
How can we foster this sense of community again, especially in today's world, Abdel Wahed, where everyone is on their phone? AI is taking over and there's all this uncertainty. I have young children who are in their 20s. They're all hyper individual in their way of thinking.
Yeah.
This concept of community is getting lost.
Yeah.
How do we bring this back? What are your thoughts about this? I'm sure you've thought about this.
I tell you something. I used to get invited to what they call majlis here, which is a salon.
Yeah.
And I'd look at them, everybody's on his phone.
Yeah.
So I stopped going out.
Yeah.
I get people also come to me, they're on their phone. Everybody's on the phone now. So
how do we break the cycle? Nobody reads. No one is interested in cultural issues. There is something getting lost.
With my weakening eyesight, I don't read like before, but also we have things, but we don't use them properly. I, for example, love YouTube because I watch documentaries on Charles Dickens, on Tolstoy, on Marcel Proust, on dietary, on food, on medicine. Things I would have to go to a bookshop and buy books from Amazon. I have them in front of me, so I'm using it there. But also there is on YouTube very stupid videos.
Yeah.
So it depends on what your interests are. And the young are deviated in their interests. It's like football. I hate football because what made me hate football was philosopher Ortega y Gasset. That it was, and also in Egypt at the time of Nasser, it was to deviate people from thinking in politics or whatever. And they made a fanaticism about it.
Yeah.
And in England, you have hooligans and they stab knives and so on. You don't see this when you're watching a tennis play.
That's right.
You see the Queen, you see people, Cliff Richard,
It's
whatever.
civilized.
Yeah, they are decent. So it's like materials. Drums take you into action, violins arouse your emotions, flutes and wind instruments bring you into a spiritual state. You know, it's the wind, it's the angels, it's, the wind is always related to the unseen.
I want to end our conversation with a couple of just very fun and light questions. I don't know if you've ever thought about what you would do if you were not an architect. What would you have as a profession if you didn't become an architect?
A cook.
A cook? You enjoy cooking?
I love cooking.
What do you like to cook?
I'm a very good cook.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you cook?
Anything you want.
From your own imagination?
When I was in Paris, no.
Or you follow recipes?
I bought a whole library. I bought all the books of Bacchus.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So you enjoy cooking?
The chef, cook of, but very difficult to do his recipes because you need a professional kitchen.
And do you cook regularly now, or you not so much?
No,
Not
I'm
so
too
much.
lazy to do
You're
anything
too lazy.
now.
Yeah. Do you think of yourself as a dreamer, or are you practically minded?
No, I'm not a dreamer.
You're not a dreamer?
No, I have nightmares.
You have nightmares. If you let your imagination go, you have nightmares.
I have nightmares sometimes. I really, because I used to have dreams, and I prayed God to stop me having those visions. I even have dreams of some of the buildings I was going to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Premonitions almost.
Yes. I dreamt I was doing a building in England, and I said, when I was doing the mosques in Saudi Arabia, so, what's that dream? It happened when Oxford came, but it came maybe some dreams come 10 years later, 20 years later.
What do you consider something difficult for you? So if I was to say to you, I have a hard time, how would you end the sentence?
That's beautiful. I'll end it with a very nice phrase from Herman Melville.
Your favorite writer, I think.
No, I have a lot of favorite writers, but I love his writing. He said, when we obey God, we have to disobey ourselves. And it is in disobeying ourselves wherein the hardness of obeying God consists. So you're asking me what's hard for you? It's by disobeying oneself. By obeying God, that's the hard part.
Yes. And if
very hard to obey God.
Yes, it is very hard.
Yeah.
If I was to say to you, I get joy from, how would you end that sentence?
X-rated.
It's too X-rated for the show. Yeah, okay, well, we could end it like that. We'll continue the conversation with Abdel Wahed next week, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for joining me today on What I Did Next. I'm Malak Fuad. This show is produced by Chirag Desai. See you again next week.